Grab your cup of coffee. Sit down for a story. Let's all go exploring. Making it after 40. Making it after 40. Making it after 40.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Making It After 40 podcast. I am your host, Lisa Rodriguez. I am an actor and writer who is still trying to make it after the age of 40. On this show, we explore what it means to be an artist trying to make it as a middle-aged person. Here is your obligatory reminder to please rate, review, and follow the show, as this is the best way to help keep it going. My guest this week is actress, writer, director, producer, and mindset coach, Lynn Downey Braswell. This conversation was one of those magical conversations where Lynn and I just showed up on the same wavelength and hit the ground running, connected, grounded, and energized. It's another one of my favorite conversations. Lynn shares with us her 9-year journey to booking some fantastic work, which then led to a 2-year lull, and then a rebuilding of herself, her mindset, and her approach to her work. Lynn is so incredibly generous with her words and her energy, and so open and honest in such a beautiful and healthy way. Please don't skip this episode. It really is a good one, and I think you all will get so much out of this conversation with Lynn. So with that, here's me and Lynn chatting away. Enjoy. Awesome. Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
It's so good to see you. I'm good. I'm good.
It's great. Your listeners are, it's really too bad for them that they can't see us because we look amazing.
We do. Yeah. We look super cute.
Yeah. Just imagine the cutest thing ever, and that's us.
Yeah. I'm loving your glasses.
Oh, thank you. I'm not going to tell you my secret, which is that they don't have lenses in them. I'm doing a full-on Jess from New Girl fashion glasses situation.
Well, I think it's adorable.
I'm the person that wants glasses, doesn't need them, wanted braces, didn't need them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I had that too when I was growing up. I was like, I want braces and I want glasses and I want asthma. I want to have to use an inhaler. Which is like,
I wanted an inhaler.
Why? Okay,
What's wrong with us?
But then I developed asthma when I was like 12 or 13. And now I'm like, that was a dumb manifestation to call in.
Yeah.
and I always still have asthma, and my kids have asthma. Hospital trips, yay! Medical bills, woohoo! And I do have glasses. I never got my braces. But as an adult, I got my Invisalign braces.
Yeah. That's it's time. What happens to our teeth?
Yeah, that was my pandemic project. I had my Invisalign throughout the whole COVID. It was great.
Hey, this is about making it after 40, and this is the insider tips. Like, just get that Invisalign, girl. Do it.
Yeah,
A manager at our apartment got braces, and she was probably 55. I was like, you do you, girl. You do it.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Anyway, okay. So Lynn is an actress and creative. I'm not going to say it right. You're a coach for creatives.
I am. Yeah. I'm a life coach and do business and mindset coaching for creatives. And the cool part is I truly believe everyone is creative.
Yes.
The idea, what I find is, my clients who are entrepreneurs or parents, it's like, oh my gosh, there's just such a rich opportunity to swim in creativity, no matter what you're doing. So we love our artists, right? But it also is about kind of awakening that creativity in all humans, because we're all works of art, which is what my company is called, Work of Art Coaching.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think so many people don't realize how much creativity comes into their daily lives. I mean, just the mere act of becoming a parent, creating another life, or welcoming a child into your life, whether that's through adoption or, whatever.
Niece or nephew, whatever. Yeah.
Niece. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That ends up opening up creative portals right there. So,
well, creativity really is about owning your choices and making choices. I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I've ever said it that way, but like you could drive home in a creative way because you choose to go a different route than you did before, right? And
Yeah.
I saw a quote recently that I'm gonna butcher it, but it was something that it was just like if you stop and look at something, it becomes magical. It becomes awe-inspiring if you really
Mm.
slow down and look at it. And if we get present, and that stress is like a little indicator that we're not present, right? Like it's our little red flag to be like,
Yeah.
whoa, slow down. And so it's like if we can slow down, really truly like look around, take a breath, like even a minute. If you just like close your
Yeah.
eyes for a second, just breathe in and breathe out. It's like our everything comes back in line of like, okay, I'm a human, I'm here. And what do I want to do with that? How do I want to be in ownership of this? So
Yes. Yeah.
anyway.
That makes me think of just this week, I went ahead and jumped on that Wes Anderson trend that's going around on Instagram where people are
Okay.
like, yeah, you better not turn grocery shopping into a Wes Anderson film.
Oh,
Like,
great.
so
Oh,
they're
yes,
making these
yes.
little 20-second, like
Oh,
Wes Anderson style videos. And I was
oh.
doing my workout on Monday morning. And I was like, oh, I could do that in here. My home
Yeah.
gym was, and I was setting up the, I because it's also where I do my self-tape. So I just pulled out my tripod and I started
Right.
setting things up. And I was like, oh, the lighting is actually really cool in here. I never noticed
Mm,
that, because I always
mm,
have the neon lights going or the self-tape
mm,
lights going. And when the light was just
mm.
coming in through the window and it was this natural light, I was like, oh, this actually kind of looks cool and quaint.
Oh,
And it's like
yeah.
my garage.
I'm in my garage right now, right?
Yeah.
Like this is my garage. I call it my garage office. It's a one-car
Yeah.
garage that we've turned into space to create, right? And I
Yeah.
think what's so cool is like we put on the lens of Wes Anderson. Like
Yeah.
and when you try something new or you try something creatively, we really do get new eyes because there's like a totally there's a different kind of agency and ownership
Mhm.
over the moment. So I think that happens with traveling, right? Like if we travel, it's like, whoa, this street.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we can be reminded to come home and try and look at our own regular life like that. So
Yeah. 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 It's
it's
really
great.
cool. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And it really kind of lit me up too, because I hadn't posted anything like that in a while. So it was a really nice way to just like
Mm,
take a few minutes to do something. I haven't had an audition in a little while. And I was like,
mhm.
okay, I can make
Yeah.
a little fun
Yeah.
piece of art and
Yeah.
move on with my day. Yeah.
And I think about that too, because like, your podcast is really speaking to people who are from the 80s and before,
Yeah.
right? And,
Yeah.
there were a certain number of people who were actors or celebrities or filmmakers, and the
Mhm.
rest of us were sort of relegated to be consumers or
Mhm.
home video, or maybe you do, plays in your hometown or whatever. But there are shadow and light to social media, but one of the real pieces of light, I think, is that it does give the tool that's just a person who lives in Minnesota
Yeah.
could be do the performing that they want to do, or the stand-up comedy that they want to do, or the singing that they want to do, or even just being a interesting, hilarious person and
Yeah.
making videos that way. So I think sometimes actors resist sharing on social media. And I think earlier, maybe it was like there was a wave where we were like, you have to get your numbers up and that's how you're going to book your next
Yeah.
job. Right.
Mhm.
But I don't do a lot of social media myself, but that's just because I've chosen to do other things.
Yeah.
And I think if you have something to share, I almost want to say to actors, it's like, think of yourself like a person in Minnesota that just wants to do this for fun. It's
Yeah.
like, what if you just had the freedom to share from that space and that energy instead of
Yeah.
feeling like it had to be right or good or make you look good or, those kind of questions. It's like, if we
Yeah.
made it art, I actually think that social media is great for creators. It's not great to just be a consumer, because then we're
Yeah.
just inundated by the ideas. But it's like, if you can, and actually I think that's true about capitalism also, which has
Yeah.
plenty of snares, but it's like, it's pretty good for people who are like, I think I'm going to try something and put it out and see if I can make some money or, do this thing or offer this service. But just plain being in the consumer place, that's where it gets pretty icky. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's an
Yeah. I like that. I really like all that you said. I think that's a really interesting way to think about it, is like, instead of just like sitting in the consumer's chair. Yeah. This is a place for us to engage and
Yeah.
to collaborate and, jump in the pool and have some fun with everybody.
Yeah. And then if there's blocks, like that's really where some of the mindset stuff that I've been playing with and working with for the last, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years myself. And then within my coaching programs or, coaching company for the last about 3 years is like, what is keeping you from having fun?
Mm-hmm.
I was speaking with somebody recently and they were like, writing is so hard. And I was like, well, there's a thought. And I don't necessarily disagree. Like, writing is hard, but that's because I think it's hard because I'm putting all of these roadblocks in front of my writing. And so much of it, it's like, well, what would make it not hard? I think it would be if we weren't judging ourselves as bad. If we were just like, I don't know, I'm going to write something the way that I do the dishes, which is just like, you get them done, you just do them. Yeah. It's like the story we have about it. And I think that's true with social media or putting it out there. It's like, but what if it doesn't look exactly right? Or what if it doesn't get the likes I want? Or what if people think it's weird? And I find that when we face those fears, we get such better feedback than we were expecting. Mm-hmm. Like, people are like, that was amazing. And we sort of help train the part of our brain that's scared that we're not going to die if we like make a funny video and put it online. It's like that part of ourselves that's afraid is real. Yeah. And it needs support. Like, I think about the inner critic, and I think very much what works for me is this image of, it's actually my inner lifeguard. Oh. It's just there like, oh my gosh, please don't die. Please don't die. Please don't die. I've got to keep you safe. And it's like, you need that thing to keep you from the tsunamis, but you don't need it to keep you from the puddles. And the inner lifeguard is just like, it's a water. So that for me, it doesn't work to fight my inner critic. I have to take care of my inner lifeguard and be like, it's okay. You're okay. I'm okay. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's so funny that you say that, because I was just listening to a podcast this week, Script Notes with John August and Craig Mason. Yeah. And they replayed a talk that they did for like a bunch of producers who I think were like coming out of like USC film school or something like that. They're like new up and coming producers. Okay. And one of the things they said to them is, when you're giving, like, one of their tips was like, just remember when you're giving these critiques or these notes that humans have like certain ways that they're going to react. And one of them is like fight or flight. Right. And so they said, like, when they hear that you don't like this, the only default that our little brain can go to is, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Yeah. And so they're like, so maybe approach it in a different way. So that way it stays as an open conversation and a collaboration, instead of the writer walking away and like not being as productive and shutting down. Oh, yes. Whereas if you do it in a way that's like less, I don't know, aggressive or like unkind, then the writer can stay open and come with like more ideas, better ideas, more creativity, which I was like, oh, yes, that's brilliant. There's John August and Craig Mason. So
it's so nuanced. Like, this is what it just is, human relationships. And I think that translates to all of our relationships. It's like, what if we could stay open when our partner says something we don't like? What if we could, share our feelings around, like, it takes so much courage to own our own experience. Yeah. And not only to start by owning it, and then to share, like, you know what, when you said that, I actually had a really strong reaction. I'm kind of shutting down right now. Like, to share that with somebody safe, because, it's not appropriate to share your inner experience with everyone. It needs to be a safe person. Right. And trust is built. But trying to practice that, like, I know in my relationship with my partner, like, man, when we can be like, I'm really sad right now, or I just got really scared, or like, I'm actually feeling kind of frustrated and angry. Like when we can say it out loud, the other person's like, okay, yeah, I get that. Like we can give each other, a 12-step phrase is the dignity of our own experience, right? Like, I think I need you to, like, Dan was trying to give me, some positive, like a spin on something. And I was like, I think I just need to be frustrated about this right now. Can I just speak my frustration? He was like, yeah, go for it. Instead of, because then I think I would have defended, that's not good, because then, it's just like, but once I got it out, then it was like, okay, yeah, no, I do see that. So that's so brilliant. I'm so glad that they said that about giving notes, because I think you're absolutely right. Like my writing journey, stop and start. And I did something in college where it was like a 1-person cabaret that I was writing. I wrote it, and I had like put the songs that I was going to do and like the banter in between. And I gave it to a couple of professors for notes. And I bet you the notes were really good, but the fact that they had any notes at all, I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm not doing this. And I didn't do the cabaret. Like I didn't do this show at all. And, I think we build some resiliency as we get older. And then sometimes we just get sick of our own bullshit. We're like, just do the damn thing. But I think we need to be so gentle with ourselves when we are looking to be creative, because it's new. And I think that's the same, this fight or flight. It's like anything new could kill you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think you spoke on about the fear and like overcoming the fear. 2 thoughts came to mind was after I went through my divorce, which like was the most devastating thing I had ever been through. Soul crushing. I went through dark night of the soul during that whole thing. And coming out of it, I lost so much fear. I was suddenly like, I want to go on that roller coaster. Let's just go and do it. Like I became more brave because I had walked through the deepest, darkest grief and pain of my life. And then even I think after turning 40 again, like there was another round of like, I'm just going to go for it, because what do I have to lose? I think there's something like wonderful about hitting that age. There's something like, you start to get it, or at least I can only speak from my experience. You start to get it when you get through the 30s, but a lot of the folks that I speak to, something changes when you turn 40, where you just the switch kind of flips and you're like, all right, I'm tired of living for other people. I'm tired of living in fear. A lot of people find that strength and start pushing and doing the things that they really want and find their stride.
That's so powerful. I think what you shared just so speaks to when you understand real pain, the things that are uncomfortable get right-sized.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I almost even makes me think about like cold plunges or like doing a cold shower or something. It's like, I don't do this very much. Dan does it sometimes. But the other day I was just going through a lot of things and I was like, I'm just going to turn the shower on cold at the very last second. And I turned it cold and I was like, ow, 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 right? Like it hurt so much. And then you turn it off, you're like, and it was like, this is a physical sensation I don't like. It's not pain, right? Like I'm not cutting my finger. I'm not like slamming into something. It's a physical sensation I don't like that registers as pain, but it's not. And I'll live through it. And like playing with the physical discomfort, it helps, I think, create more resiliency or space to deal with the things that are uncomfortable. Like we have been in a moment where we're going to be in getting a new apartment. And I have negotiated more in this season than I have in my whole life. And I'm using all sorts of professional skills to just like hold space and be like, I might as well ask. Right. So it's just like when we're, it's that's an emotional discomfort. And then to have like, I was in the cold shower, like there's a physical discomfort. It just sort of goes, okay, neither one of these are pain. These are just growth points or, your growth edge.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It also makes me think about, there's a poem, and I don't think I remember the woman's name, but it's called The Time of the Awakened Woman.
Okay.
And it says something like, there comes a time in the life of a woman when she no longer blah, 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 blah. And it's just over and over and over. And so much of
Yeah.
it is like, you know, when she throws off the shackles of her parental ideas and chooses to live in her own life, you know, like when she protects her own worthiness the way she protects her babies. Like there's all these great
Yeah.
phrases that just say like, there's a time when you're like,
Yeah.
I'm not buying into that story that kept me small.
Yeah. Oh, I think I'm there. I think I'm there.
I think you are. You are the awakened woman, Lisa.
Yes.
And you know, it's like everybody is people. Like everyone is a person.
Yes.
And I think for kind and soft and gentle people and Midwesterners, that's us, that's me anyway.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we even think like, well, business is this thing with these rules and this is the right way to do it. And they're in charge and there's the authority. And da-da. It's like, no, it's people. It's
Yeah.
people. So if you're good with people, you could be great in business. You know, it's like if you can use all of those skills. And I think for me, there's like, it's breaking, but there was like a veil between like me being a good human and a good friend and a good in relationships or, you know, even being a great waitress or being a good communicator to being like, well, I don't know what to do in the business world. It's like, what if you took all those skills and just did that, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think some part of it is what we spoke about earlier is this idea of like, that's a thought. Like, oh, they're different. Like, what if not?
Yeah. I mean, I carry that into my day job as a property manager. Like I think so much of what makes me successful at that job is listening.
Oh
The
my gosh.
tenants just want to be heard. And that's like a big part of acting, right? Is just
Huge.
listening. If I listen to them and I hear like they're telling me their needs. And I learned this in a customer service training like very, very early on in my career. They just said like, you don't need to apologize. You did not create their problem. Never apologize. What they want to hear is, I understand. I hear you.
Yep.
Let me see what I can do for you. Let me see, you know, I can't promise that I can fix this, but I'm going to see what I can do. And that, oh man, that like helps so much. That de-escalates.
Yeah, because if somebody is not feeling understood or heard, that's a version of being shunned. Yeah. It's a version of being detached from the group, right? If this thing has happened and nobody's helping, if you're alone and isolated, you know, that connects to our caveman brain. That's the same as the fight or flight brain. But if we as cave people were shunned or pushed away from the group or separated on accident from the group, we were so vulnerable.
Yes. Yeah.
So vulnerable. And so that also is, you know, the idea of like the in crowd. It's like, yeah, people want to be in the in crowd because the in crowd is safer because it's the inner circle of this outer group, because at the edges, you might die. Yeah. But that empathy, right? Like in what you're offering is so beautiful because it is empathy. And I think it brings us back to our human brain. You know, I don't know where I heard this, and I think it's vaguely accurate, but we have, you know, our amygdala is the oldest part of our brain. That's the fight or flight place. And it's like, it's like a lizard brain back here. So you've got this, and then it's wrapped in a monkey brain, wrapped in a human brain. Okay. And so the lizard brain is the oldest part of our brain. So it's that like default. Yes. So that's where we'll go default wise. And then we have this monkey brain that's like, da, 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 what do I do? Like, oh, look at that. Shiny. Shiny. Yeah, exactly. And then we have the human brain that goes, you know, it would be interesting to get a group of people together and work together to build a skyscraper. It's probably going to happen in about 5 to 7 years. We'll need iron. We'll need steel. We'll need, I wonder how we'll make that happen. Let's start planning. Like we're the only species, maybe I think squirrels, you know, plan ahead. Yeah. They hide nuts or whatever. But like we can plan ahead and think in the future using our prefrontal cortex in a way that lots of other creatures don't. Yes. And so just because we can doesn't mean we do. And so when we are in that state of fear, we go back and we revert to our fight or flight monkey and lizard brain that doesn't have access to these more nuanced emotions. And so it's like when somebody's like, I hear you. Let's see what I can do. There's breath. And they like okay, great. Maybe they could see it differently, or they could,
Yes.
instead of just fighting about it, even I think about like debating, there's a lot of charged things happening in our culture right now, and we're not very good at listening to somebody
Yeah.
else's thoughts, and we don't have to agree with them. But can we be like, you know what? I actually don't like this.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to let's keep talking. Maybe you do have one point that I'm, and like how do we be together even as we are different,
Yeah. 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 Oh man, Lynn, we just jumped right in
Boom,
and like hit the ground running.
boom.
Oh yeah. I love this. This is so
And we
awesome.
still look great. Ugh,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah. We're still adorable.
Ugh.
Well, let me have you go back and give our audience a little overview of your creative journey, because I'm really curious. I know what I know from knowing you, and obviously we met through some casting workshops
Mhm.
on the line, and then that became like a more intimate relationship. And so but I don't know like
Anything
how
about me.
I know bits and pieces about your history, but I would love to hear more about like your whole
Yeah.
creative journey, because you are in like such an amazing place right now, and like I love seeing your career and like
Mm,
how wonderful it is, and all the things that you're involved in,
mm.
and the way that this awesome conversation that we just had. I'd love to hear like
Mm.
how this evolved person came to be.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, first off, I really received those words. I really, really appreciate what you're doing for the creative community, for the space
Aw.
of, speaking about what it's like to start an artistic career after 40, keep going on an artistic career after 40,
Yeah.
re-navigate what that looks like. And I just honor your journey. And I've seen you really expand even in the last 3 or so years that we've known each other.
Thank
There's
you.
a
Yeah.
difference, right? There's a real
Yeah.
difference in your ownership and in your effitness.
Well, yeah.
And,
Yeah,
um,
well, that was a big thing that I learned from you, was you called me out on that. Maybe I should say called me in on that
mm,
in a beautiful way,
because we
that
did a
like
couple of sessions together. We did some
yes.
coaching sessions,
Yeah,
active coaching sessions. Mhm.
yeah, and you called me in on that in a way that I hadn't witnessed before. I hadn't witnessed myself in that way before.
What do
I
you mean?
was like, I was kind of like still in like a victim type
Oh,
mentality
sure.
about certain things of my life. I
Yeah.
wasn't taking ownership about certain things of my life, but I had before those sessions, I had done so much work on myself in many other ways, through therapy,
Yeah.
through I
Mhm.
identify as a codependent, so I had done
Yep.
a lot of that work. And so when you pointed that out to me, and I had judged other people who I was like, "Oh, they're such a victim." And then when you pointed that out, right?
Isn't
Is
that
that
the worst?
it's
It's
always
the
how,
worst. Anytime
and
you're
I'll
like,
tell you,
"Oh, they're such a exactly what I am."
I am exactly. There's such a, and then the mirror comes
Dot,
up in
dot, dot.
front of
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
like,
Then
"Oh,
you're just like,
I'm talking about myself."
"Ow,
Yeah.
ow!"
And
I
you
just got
walk
hit by
right
the
into that.
mirror. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So I really appreciated that you allowed myself to see that
Mm.
behavior, and it really kind of, I feel like that really kind of helped me shift my focus and like
Mm.
and think about things in a new way. And we're always learning, we're always
We
growing. I'm sure there's
always.
more things that I'm
Sure.
doing. There was something that I was doing recently, and I was like, Lisa, I
Yeah.
believe that's one of
Come on
those
back.
like
Come on back.
manipulation codependent things, or I find
Mhm.
myself wanting to do a little white lie just to tweak it to make myself look a little bit better. And I'm like,
Sure.
oh,
Sure.
nope.
Yep.
Own the fault
Mm.
that you had in that
Mm.
action.
Mm.
Just, it takes work and it
It's gonna
hurts, but
taste
you
better
gotta
in
do
the
it.
end. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
The white lie is like, "Ooh, a McDonald's fry," and then the reaction is like, "Ooh, a McDonald's fry 5 days later. Oh, now I have to eat
Yeah.
that."
Yeah.
Instead of like, "This is not gonna taste great, but it's gonna be good for me." Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and I
Hmm.
think what's so powerful about you pointing that out was, first off, I had you were so willing to be in that space, right? And you had given me consent to coach you in that moment, right? Like I wasn't just, hey, you, this is what I see, right?
Yes.
But it's really that, is it okay if we look at this? It sounds like this isn't working quite right for you. Can we slow down with that? And you were so willing to be there. And that's what, you know, if somebody is interested in coaching, it works best when you're really ready, really willing, really open, because it's not about what I have to offer. I'm not a teacher per se. I mean, there's ideas that I can share, but it's about really you're the curriculum. Yeah. And what are you working with and what's coming up for you, and like letting that be okay. And we all have curriculums. We're like, you know, the layers of the onion. You're like, I got this one done. You're like, ooh, here's another one.
Yeah.
But you know, when we were talking about this idea around ownership and victimhood, you know, one of the things I love to say is that it's the tool of victimhood or the tool of ownership.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because it's like, it can almost be mean to, like, we can't bully ourselves into evolution. We can't bully ourselves into like self-realization. So if we're like, I was being such a victim, like that's actually kind of a mean thing to say. You know, I mean, it's fine if you're in a good place, but like what I, you know, and especially as we talk about like the tender places, like we're only using the tool of victimhood in a place where we don't have any other tools.
Yeah.
If we had another tool, we'd use another tool. And as we become aware of like, wow, I am seeing myself in victimhood. I am not taking ownership. I'm not picking up the tools that I have of ownership or, you know, and I think it's just, that has become a way that I like because it's gentle, right? And my coach calls the work that we do Pilates for the soul. Like it's these little tiny movements that really do a lot, but you're doing them and you're like a lot of the work we do is around gentleness. Oh, so much gentleness. Like we're just not, we're a harder people than we think we are. And when we're like, oh, you know, for you to be like, wow, I really released some of this victimhood. Well done for me. But then like, if there's like, am I judging myself that I was in victimhood? Like, maybe I could not judge myself. Maybe I could say I was doing the best I could with what I had. This is an invitation into gentleness. But gentleness feels so like, well, that's not going to do anything. Yeah. Or like, well, I haven't booked the thing yet. Why would I be gentle with myself? Like I need to book the thing so that I prove that I'm good enough and then I'll be nice to me. Yeah. Like talk about a moving goalpost, because then you book a co-star. Yeah, but it wasn't a cable television show. Okay. Well, then you book the cable. Well, yeah, but it wasn't a guest star. Right. So just that's a beautifully powerful share. And there's such richness there. And so speaking of gentleness, and to come back to your beautiful question about my journey. So I was born and raised in Bloomington, Indiana. And I did little like plays when I was a kid. And I was just joking with my best friend that I feel like we switched life paths at one point, because she was the star of all the shows. And in one of the shows, I was the stagehand who like worked the lights. And I knew all of her lines, and I was like, I could do that better than you. But so she did a bunch. Anyway, I don't know. I'm starting in elementary school. So I did, but then I did theater in high school and I loved it. And I discovered you could study theater in college, and I had no idea you could do that. So then I went to college for theater at Ball State University, and I had 4 years of camp. It was so fun. I think I did 10 shows. I loved it. It was super special. The people that I went to college with were incredible. I thought we were the best artists in the world. And that was I came crashing down from that high. So I thought I was going to move to Chicago, and then I went there in the winter. And it was too cold. And And then I also took a camera class my senior year. Okay. And something happened when we watched the tapes back. Okay. One is that I peaked the mic so bad that you couldn't even hear my lines. But the other thing that happened was I had this internal experience of like, I did that. That's me. That's me. I did that. I see it. I did the thing. It logged in my soul in a different way. And I love theater, but I was also kind of getting tired. I was like, do I want to be at a theater every single night of my life? I don't know if I want this to be my career. But there was something so satisfying of seeing it back. And
Yeah.
I think I'm a very visual person because there was a time when I was in junior high and a friend of mine had a picture of all her friends. And I was like, oh, I wish I had friends like that. And then I was like, I do have friends like that. I just don't have a picture of them.
Yeah.
And so seeing it helped me. When I started dating Dan, when we had a picture together, I was like, oh, I get what that relationship is. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, your brain, that's how your brain
That's just
processes.
how
It's like the mirror neurons or something, like you're reflecting it back to yourself. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it just felt incredibly satisfying to be able to then have it too, right? Like a play is beautiful and it's alive, but then it dies and it's gone. You can't see it again, right? So, and I had family in LA, and like obviously the weather was better, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I'm going to go to LA. So I moved to LA. I stayed home and made some money, and I moved out here. And I ended up getting an internship with Dino De Laurentiis' company at Universal Studios my first year in Los Angeles, because his wife had gone to Ball State. So there was like a connection there. And so I just had an office job, and I started auditioning for things. And I got a documentary that shot in 6 countries in Europe and the Middle East. France, Italy, Greece, Turkey, Israel, and Egypt. We went for 21 cities in 21 days. It was nuts.
Oh, wow.
I did a really great play with a company that's now in New York, Eric Tucker's company. I can't think of the name of it. It is in New York, but they've done a ton of incredible things. But we did the Scottish play in a warehouse near the Burbank airport. And one of the actions was I was one of the murderers, and we drove a convertible into the space, killed the children, dragged them into the convertible, and drove off.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy. And it sounds incredible, but like there were nights when we'd have like 7 people in the audience. But anyway, I came out here and I just tried all the things. I did improv. I took all the classes. I did plays. I tried to get agents. I became a waiter. So I waited tables. I, had every side job there was. I substitute taught. I sold jewelry. I worked for this phone accessibility company. I temped, catered, like nannied, all of the things.
Yeah.
And it was like type-wise, right? Like my college professors were like, you're going to work a lot in your 30s.
Yeah.
Like it was like, you seem like a mom and you're 24 and nobody really knows what to do with that. And so I don't think I understood the business side. I didn't understand type. I didn't understand bringing my performance to a really simple, believable place, because, you hear do less. Well, that's not quite what they're talking about. Like just turning from theater to film, it was a huge adjustment. And, it was like, make your own stuff. And so we made our own stuff, or try to get footage. So I do student films and they wouldn't get the footage back. So it was just a lot of, it was just very shotgun, like spaghetti against the wall.
Yeah.
And so I moved in 2005, and I really started booking commercials when I had finally gotten an agent that got me out enough that I then had enough experience auditioning to start getting better at auditioning.
Yeah.
And that was like 2013. So I did a bunch of commercials, or in 2013, non-union commercials. And around that time, I had taken a book and adapted it into a play. There's a whole other story there of just the fear of like doing something like big like this, or making something, and like getting over that with the help of so many people in a wonderful production company.
That's a huge undertaking.
It was a huge undertaking. And I got the rights from the author by emailing her, but I had to get over my whole, like a lot of stories of what I was capable of or not capable of doing. But really we're talking about ownership, right? Like starting to take more and more ownership over what is mine and what I can do. And so I booked a good amount of non-union commercials in 2013. And I think I kind of made money as an actor for the first time for real. And then 2014, I booked a Geico ad that went cuckoo bonkers and did really well. And,
awesome.
And then we did the play that year, and I got a manager, and I joined SAG, and I qualified for insurance, and I had a savings account. Like it was like, it's finally happening. So it's like my 9th year. And in 2015, like nothing really happened. And I was like, no, it was like sort of, it was like up
Yes.
level, but now that I was going against other people, right?
Mhm.
And so that was like the beginning of 2015 was like, no. And then 2016 was like, no.
Oh no.
So that was my dark night of the soul. It was really like, I feel like
Yeah.
I had been running for 10, 11 years. I had just
Yeah.
been hustling and I had been trying and I had gotten some really good wins, but something I shared that is a part of now what I do with coaching, but is that I couldn't see all that I had accomplished in the shadow of all
Yeah.
that I hadn't.
Yeah. I read that in another
Yeah.
interview you did,
Yeah.
and I love the way you say that I think that's really powerful, and I think a lot of people can resonate with that. Yeah.
And I was
Mhm.
just making it mean something about me, right? And I think
Yeah.
I was really looking for the right teacher, the right school, the right way to do it, instead of really
Mm.
slowing down and figuring out, well, what is my way? Because there's no right way. There's only the right way for me. How do I feel on the inside? Does it feel good? Like I was doing improv for years because I loved the community, but I didn't like improv. I was teaching
Yeah.
improv. I did like teaching it way better than doing it, but I was teaching improv and not liking improv, right? Like I think I
Yeah.
didn't. And then when I started doing theater again, it was really like, I love this and I'm doing this because I love it. And so that was a special
Yeah.
part of 2014 through about 18 or something. I was working really closely with Little Candle Productions and it was like,
Okay.
this doesn't make any sense, but I love it. Like, maybe not sense, but like doesn't make a lot of money, but I love
Right.
it. Right. And really even saying to myself, like, people love golf. They pay a lot of money to do golf. Like, if I
Yeah.
love something, go do it. I took a stand-up comedy class because
Yeah.
I really liked the teacher and I really liked the class and I paid for it. Not because I was going to go be a stand-up, but like because it was fun and people pay money to play golf. So just have some
Yes.
fun. So
Yeah.
this was that sort of season of kind of trying to, I feel it was I was going through a spiritual deconstruction at the same time from my like religious upbringing. But this was a deconstruction of like, oh, all the things that the shoulds and it should have happened by now, or I must not be
Mhm.
as good as I thought I was, or I shouldn't be doing this, or, will I ever get successful? And it was really hard. It was really painful. Um,
Yeah.
and I think I'm grateful for that time, that going down to the bottom of the well. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful for the people in my life who loved me through it. And I'm also really grateful that I was like, this is not me. Something's off, something's wrong. Right. And I think I ended up
Mhm.
also recognizing I was like, I either need to do something different or I need to do this differently.
Yeah.
Like, because it's not worth losing my soul. It's not worth losing
Mm.
my self-worth or my relationship with myself.
Mhm.
And I was like, I need help, right? And so that's when I found 12-step programs. That's when I tried some different, spiritual communities and new
Mhm.
spiritual ideals and inviting healing in that way.
Mhm.
Started going to the why and like just plain moving my body.
Yeah.
And that's also when I found coaching for the first time. Well, I had
Yeah.
done some coaching, but the way it really landed is like, oh my gosh, we have a say over our thoughts and our thoughts
Yeah.
create our feelings, actions, and results. And so I started putting that into practice in my own life. And I forgave myself for not being where I thought I should have been.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And just that inner work, because I think, I also got advice of like, okay, Lynn, just do this, 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 and this, it'll help your career. I couldn't
Uh-huh.
do the list, right? I couldn't do the list. I'm a
Yeah.
smart, capable person who should have been able to do a list. And I couldn't. And so that's where there was like this inner story,
Was that your inner blocks that
Yeah,
were preventing you
completely.
from doing the list, or was
Oh,
it
yeah.
like Okay.
Mm-mm,
Okay. Yeah.
mm. No, totally. Like I can't remember exactly what the list was because I kind of have let go of that list. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. You've
you
moved
know,
on to other
do a
lists.
workshop a month or two workshops a month or like, email a casting director. There was just so much fear. I just had so much fear.
Yeah.
And no one I don't think would have known. I don't think anyone would have known me in 2014 or 15 or 16 and been like, oh yeah, Lynn, what a scaredy cat. She just doesn't do anything. But I know my inner experience was that there was a lot of self-judgment and fear of rejection, or that it wouldn't be good enough. And it was just holding me back. And I really think that the slowing down, the getting centered, and choosing to be on my own side no matter what, that was a
Yeah.
cry my eyes out moment, where I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? Something I had found out something about somebody that was basically my dream come true, but had happened to them twice. And I was like so jealous and so angry and so envious and so frustrated. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just was on this walk and I'm like bawling my eyes out, you know, and I remember saying, this is the moment. I am committed to loving myself through my journey of growth, healing, and transformation, period.
Yeah.
Like, I'm committed to loving myself. And I think about Monsters Inc. a lot, how they're
Okay.
like trying to bottle the fear, and the fear is energy.
Oh,
It does, you know, like the fear does get a battery full. And then all of a sudden this little girl laughs and it like breaks the battery. You can't contain the laughter, like the battery. Oh, I love that metaphor. And I think that's kind of the blessing of going through the downside and then the commitment to loving. It was like, that was the big fuel. Like, you can only shame
Yeah.
yourself so far. Like,
Yeah.
but you can love yourself to infinity and beyond, because it's like, whether I get the thing or not, I'm going to be on my side. I'm going to choose me. And what happens when we do that is we're irresistible.
Yeah.
And like, then I'm like more comfortable and I'm less weird. And it's like, well, what could I do to make this mine, whether I get it or not? And then I'm like a human instead of like an ego. So that was like a huge turn in my life. And it's also where some of my bigger bookings came. I had a couple of TV jobs, and then when I just was like, I'm going to create a big goal, but I'm going to love myself no matter what. Like, there was a year I was like, I'm going to get 5 guest stars, and I'd never gotten a guest star before. And sure enough, that like February, I got my very first guest star, and I'd been working for a long time, and I've gotten a good, you know, rapport with my agent. But it was just like, you know, who I was and my resume just didn't match up. What I know I'm capable of, my resume just didn't match up. And so I was like, this is it. This is the project. Like, let's do it. Let's open to it. And so I booked The Rookie, and I booked Daisy Jones, which is 3 recurring episodes.
Yes.
Well, it was going to be 4, but it got down to 3. And then I also booked American Crime Story, which was a co-star.
Yes.
But once it aired, it was such a powerful big scene that we got permission to list as a guest star. I didn't get paid.
Awesome.
I didn't get paid as a guest star, but I got, you know, so it was like, and that was 2020. So it was, I got eventually, because things didn't air until the next year, but it was like, wow, retroactively, I got those 5. It counts to me in my brain. So it was really using the tools and supporting my mindset and my thoughts about things, and getting out the gunk. It's like, you know how often you have to clean up the floor of your bedroom? It's like every day you're like, where's all this, who left this clothes everywhere? And that's like the brain, you know, we just have to keep working on it. But that's been the partnership. And so what I, you know, when I started, I think, and a lot of people, it's like acting, I just need to be a good actor. I need to be a good actor. And then eventually we're like, no, I need to know the business. I need to understand the business. And for me, that wasn't enough. I had to be like, how you doing? Like, I need this third plate of the mindset piece in order. And that's where, for me, everything started. Creating commitment.
I can relate to that. I think that's a big part of like where my career is at. Like, I can do the training. I do the training. And then like you, when I came out here, I didn't understand the business side of it at all.
No.
And so
we're not that, I don't know that anybody does really.
No.
Yeah.
And I definitely came out here like distracted with wanting to be in relationships and whatever.
There's a life piece. Too, right? Because then the people who are so focused on their career, they wake up and they're like, wait a minute, I don't have friends. I don't have a relationship. I don't have a home life. Like, it's such a wild balance. Yeah. That we're all trying to learn.
And I think the mindset is so important too, because this particular industry can be so brutal for like so many, whether you're a writer, director, or actor. Like, you can just you can compare yourself into a corner.
And I don't
just
think
like in a fetal position, wondering why them and not me.
And also just, it's helpful to look for the data,
Yeah.
which is like, how many people are SAG actors in LA?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
And there's a limited amount of roles, right? And like, I don't love thinking about limitations, but in the same way, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. They've been here for 20 years. They've been working since they were a kid. They, this, that, or the other. It's so, the data piece of it too is, it's like, because then we can understand, like, when you get an audition, that's a big deal.
It is.
And like celebrating that, even a callback is a big deal. Like, even just getting the ball rolling, it's courageous and it's a big deal. And that's something we really work with when I'm working with a an artist client, is really celebrating the wins. I think it's true for all humans, but it's like, give yourself permission for that to be enough right now.
Yeah. One piece of data that I think comes up a lot with people is the 10-year mark. You experience that for a lot of people. It takes 10 years to really start booking things. And so it's kind of like, when you look at it that way, and of course there's always exceptions, but like when you kind of look at it that way, it's like, okay, well, maybe I can cut myself a little bit of slack then.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into that, because the other part is, like, there are people who come out early and book as adolescents and young adults. And I've experienced this. It's interesting when you care about people who are different types than you, how the waves of who's working when. One of the beautiful things about being 40 or more is that you can see the patterns in a way that I couldn't, right? Like, so I just came out and I met these people and they were working, and I'm like, well, what's wrong with me? These people are working. Well, then when I go into my perfect type, which is probably 36 and above, right? Like, now I'm 36 and above. Well, now they're older too, but they're not a young adult. And, maybe they were with the kids division of something. And so we're all going to hit moments of struggle and challenge, and we're going to hit them at different times. Or maybe somebody's career is incredible the whole way through, and they have challenges with their family life or their health, or et cetera, et cetera. Like, that's part of being older and seeing we're all going to struggle in one way or another. And what's my curriculum? To go back to this idea about curriculum, it's like, all right, well, this was my curriculum. This was my journey to learn what I needed to learn. And that's going to be theirs. And it doesn't mean that I'm failing or I'm wrong because they've succeeded in this way. How am I succeeding, but I'm not giving myself credit for, So.
Yeah. Well, I know, like, you talk about the curriculum. That's an interesting way to think about it. Like, I know we were talking about, earlier, like the judgment piece, like that's definitely a way that I learn my lessons, in life, is that when I am judging someone else, the universe often will be like, oh, really? Because guess what? Like, I used to think like, oh, divorce, there's always a way out of it. You don't have to get divorced. And then it was like, oh, really? Okay.
So good. Okay, Lisa, I have such a direct example of this happening.
Okay.
I was talking to my mom on the phone. This was years ago. I was driving to like a rehearsal for an acting class with one of my, whatever. I always stick my phone on speaker in my bra when I'm driving, right? So like, I'm talking to her on the phone and I'm going down, see like Hollywood or Sunset, and I turn left on, I don't know if it wasn't La Brea, it was maybe like La Cienega or something. I know exactly what this intersection is, but I don't know. So it's in West Hollywood, and it was probably at least 10 years ago. And my mom said something about someone from my community in childhood, and I was so judgy about it. I was like, no, well, blah 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 them. And I went through just the tail end of a yellow light. It turned red, and I saw the flashers come, because West Hollywood, I don't know if they're still legal anymore, but they had the click-it tickets. It's like the ticket that's going to get you on a picture. And I had known from somebody else how friggin' expensive those tickets were. And I felt it. I saw it happen, and I was like, no. And immediately I was like, I got that ticket for judging.
Oh man.
I shouldn't have judged. It has nothing to do with the red light. That was me. And so it was just such a visceral, it was like the universe was like, that'll be $375, please. How's that taste? Tastes good? Do you want some more? And they also take a picture of you, right? And so it came in the mail, and my roommate was like, ha, 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 let me see the picture of you. And I was like, no. And she's like, oh, look at that picture. I was like, it's 375. She was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought it was like 65 or something. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to yell, make fun of you. So yeah, that's a
that
good
is
thing.
So funny. That is so funny. Well, I wanted to ask you too, how do as a human being who has feelings and has ups and downs,
I'm a coach now. Everything is fine.
Just a human being.
Yeah.
I know I go through seasons too where I'm we talked about you've noticed that my energy has changed and I'm in a much better place and taking ownership and all that. But I still have my seasons where I'm I think for me, I realized I'm I think I need to get off of social media, which was actually part of my catalyst for doing that little Wes Anderson trend video, because I found myself feeling jealous of people and starting to be oh, why are they having that? Where that? And I was like, Lisa, you need to make some art. You need to do a little piece of art.
Yes, you do.
And if you're not going to do the piece of art, then you need to just shut it down. Get off social media for a little bit.
Well, think of that sentence. Yeah. How do I need to get off social media? The way you need to get off heroin. I need to get off this shit. I need this stuff is I got to get off. I got to lay down the booze. It's a drug in some ways, I think that's human, right? We're never going to we can't self-help ourselves into some weird perfection. And when people do or think they do, they're dangerous. Those are the weird gurus that you're like, ugh. I really respect the people that are doing their best and recognize that we're going to slip and fall. We're not going to be perfect. We're going to have sticky attachments. We're going to have judgments. And I think, I was talking to a client this last week that was really powerful. We were talking about when something goes awry, when something goes wrong, there's going to be things that go wrong. And that's the rupture. I think I learned this from a parenting thing, but it was the repair is more important than the rupture. How do you repair? And for you in these moments when you're oof, I got to get off social media, or oh, wow, I'm really jealous right now. It's how do you care for yourself in those moments? Are you able to be gentle? Are you able to slow down? Are you able to create some more tools around it? And so, for me, I think as we practice this stuff over and over and over, I would wake up in the morning feeling behind for a long time. And I'd really bought into the story that early bird gets the worm and blah, blah, blah. It's just not right for my body. And so I've done a ton of work around letting myself sleep the amount that I need. And,
that's great.
I felt when, I don't know what happened exactly, but it was just I'm just going to choose to believe that sleeping the amount I need into the morning is fine, because I stay up late and I do self-tapes and I have more energy that way anyway. And I'm just going to choose that it's fine. And I really release myself from that judgment, and it's pretty much gone.
That's great.
Because of the commitment to that belief and the real truth. It's no, that feels really true to me. It's not that it's gone forever, or I know I don't want to change, it's not I can't make a different choice and be okay, I'm going to choose to do this differently. But it does end up, you get better at it. Right. So one of my favorite things that my coach taught me, which is, when something is a skill, it's really good news, because a skill can be learned. And I do think that caring for yourself in a moment of downturn, in a moment of jealousy, in a moment of comparison, in a moment of disappointment, how do we care for ourselves? I think those are skills.
Yeah.
It's not magic. I think we can get better at being gentle, at knowing what we need, at reaching out for a friend. I think in the past I would be if I was feeling a little down, there'd be times when I'd I'm going to call a friend and be how are you? Oh my gosh, tell me all the things. And now I kind of go I'm going to reach out and be hey, I'm just feeling a little down. I'm wondering if we could talk. Being honest about what's going on with you, or I think the human to human connection, reaching out to somebody who you can trust is kind, that will listen, and I think right now, I'll be honest that, so I had a baby right after I turned 40.
Yeah.
And and she's 7 months now. So I have a newborn.
Yes.
Well, I guess she's not a newborn. I have an infant. And um, I really felt like coaching and acting were the two pedals of the bike. That was a lot.
Yeah.
And now that I have a really important, beautiful third pedal, it is
Uh-huh.
like, ooh, how do I do not just the two main careers of my life, but
Yes.
this other thing? And I really think if we can find us, as if we're talking about actors specifically, if we can find something else to do that makes money that we don't hate, and then eventually something that we do that makes money that we love, I think we're in a really good position, because
Yeah.
then the acting, you don't need it. Then you can, like, oh, good, I made a little bit here, or oh, good, I have this project coming up, instead of it being your livelihood. Like, I think if I had a piece of advice, I try not to give advice really, but I do think it's like, find something that you love that can create some income for you,
Yes.
so that you can be free to act and make income. My
Yeah.
income for the last 2 years has been 50-50 acting and coaching, which I just am like, yes, it's so
Yeah.
awesome. But it's like, I'm spending a lot of time and energy in my coaching business and building my business and serving my clients and reaching out to other people. Then it's like, oh, I have an audition. Okay, cool. Wonder where I'm going to put that in. All right, we'll schedule it in here. And then I'm not like constantly checking the phone, when's the next thing. And
Yeah.
so, getting clear on what your real goal is, and like asking, like, why do I want that thing? And do I think it's going to fulfill me?
Yeah.
And maybe it will be really satisfying, but would it be fulfilling? And yeah, so with acting right now, like, I'm grateful to just be sort of riding the wave. For a little while, I was like, I want a lot of small jobs, because small
Yeah.
jobs are pretty easy, and I want to build that resume.
Yeah.
And yet right now, I'm actually in a season of like, cool, I want commercials that pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's where I am right now. Like, that's what I want.
Yeah.
Like, and I just booked a short film today, and I was like, oh, okay, great. Oh, okay, great. What day is it? Okay. Oh, damn, I booked a short film. It's like, it's
Yeah.
cool that I can be at a place where I've worked enough that I really can look back and be like, I built a beautiful career for myself. And
Yeah.
I had a manager meeting one time, and she was like, okay, well, you're not developmental. And I was like, oh, I didn't say that to her, but I was like, I'm not developmental. I've been developmental my whole life, right? Like, it's like,
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah.
And we talk about the difference between, like, it's satisfying to have like a resume, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's fulfilling. But it's
Yes.
okay that it's satisfying, because it's worth getting, like, yes, I
Yeah.
did that. Yes, I did that.
Yeah.
And so right now, I'm not in a huge season of expansion or push.
Yeah.
And I'm not with a huge agency, or I almost got to go to the red carpet for Daisy Jones, and then I got COVID.
No.
Yeah, it's a bummer. But so it's interesting to just own in different phases, like, this is really good for me right now.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
think from that place, you can be, I really like shouting other people out on social media. That's maybe one antidote. It's
Yeah.
like, if you're starting to feel jealous, I had a moment where,
Mhm.
can I tell a story?
Yes, of course, please.
So I was in a workshop with a casting director, and she started telling this story about somebody that she cast. And she was like, we needed a ringer. And I said, I know who it is. And she cast this person, and I knew this person through
Yes.
theater.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so jealous. I was like, I want her to call me a ringer. We could have done that. But like, I was just angry and small self, and I was like, well, this is not great. And so I thought, you know what? Actually, I know her, and I have her email, and I could just, gosh darn, tell her that she just got shouted out by this big casting director. So I went home that night, and I was like, I just want to let you know, this casting director just sung your praises, and like, I think you're great too, and gosh darn it, good luck, right?
Yeah.
The next time I saw her, and we didn't know each other very well,
Yeah.
she attacked me with a hug, like, boof.
Aww.
And she grabs me, she goes, I got your email a day before I had a huge audition for that agency. And all I did was sit in the waiting room and reread your email over and over and over. And then I went in and I booked it.
Oh my God.
Like, chills all over my body, right? And so,
yes.
and I know in that moment, I was just able to grab onto the higher vibration of love than the lower vibration of jealousy.
Yeah.
But it was that practice, and the fact that it did that to her. Like, there's been times when I I was on avail for something and didn't book it and was like, oh man, darn it. I wonder who got it. And it was a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And you're like, yay.
Yeah.
And so we'll even practice with my coaching clients, like we'll really practice celebrating whoever won it because they probably really needed that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I just said won it, whoever booked it. Right. But it's like, can we be in such celebration for whatever happens because we can just trust that it's for that is good. That's a spiritual practice. And I think we're so lucky as actors to have to do this kind of spiritual practice on a daily basis in the way maybe a dentist doesn't.
Well, I just did that with myself with Daisy Jones because I did like the only guest star audition I've had was for Camila's mom. Which I was like, holy crap, how did I get this audition? Okay, well, let me just go for it. And I did it. And obviously I didn't get it. And I was like, oh, I need to watch this show. You know, like a friend is in it. Lynn is in it. I want to watch Lynn. But I was like, I need to see who got it because that's part of my growth and part of my learning. But I was so sad. I was like, not sad, more like, I wasn't good enough. There's that piece in my head that's like, I was never good enough. I shouldn't have had that audition in the first place. But I watched it. And of course, like the actress who got it, she was great. She's lovely. She has a great career. She was awesome. And I was like, you know what? She was just the person. She was just the person. It wasn't because she was like miles above my talent or like I was so low down here. She was just the person.
That audition.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. And that's a big step, right? And there's more guest stars coming because that one already opened the door for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's an important, I think that's an important thing. And like it's good to watch the things that you didn't book just to understand like what it went to. But I think it's also like nice to celebrate that win for the person who did get it because it wasn't yours. It was theirs. Yeah. That was
I mean, and it's not that we have access to that immediately, but it's like if we can invite that in, you know, and that person had their own disappointments. Yeah. You know, like, you know, and working with some of the more celebrity people on the show, like they've got their stuff going on. Yeah. You know, personally, like my heart broke for Riley Keough that Daisy Jones was coming out right after her mom passed away. Like my mom is living and that is just right. And so it's like we can just tell the story that if somebody's life is going well in this area, we just assume that it's that way everywhere. And everybody has their thing. Yeah. And it's okay to feel the feelings and recognize them. It's really good to be sad. Yeah. Right. Like, you know, Daisy Jones, I talked about this on the podcast. Thanks for coming in. If anybody wants to check that out with Jillian Claire, I told the whole story of my audition and my, booking for that, and it's huge, and a lot got cut out. Like a lot. Like I had a really big beautiful emotional scene where I said goodbye to the boys. Like I was like, I'm gonna get TV footage of me crying on camera. Like that is a whole other thing, and they got cut out. And like I didn't get to go to the premiere because I had COVID. Like these are things that were sad. They were disappointing. Rachel Drummond is a great teacher for commercials and then also just a wonderful actress and a wonderful person. She's booked things that I haven't booked before. And I think I've booked things that she hasn't booked before, you know? But she was so kind to me because she was like, the advice she gives is like, let yourself be as sad as the process was up to that point. So if you found out about the audition on Tuesday and it was on Wednesday and you didn't book it on Friday, like, okay, be sad for like 4 days. Or even like I went into the audition, I did it and I came home. Okay, that was 45 minutes. Okay, I'm going to be weird for 45 minutes and I'll shake it off. She was like, Lynn, this was a 3-year process for you. Like you don't have to just shake it off. Like it isn't just about being positive. It's like really feeling the feeling. So I had to really process through, you know, like, it's a bummer, but also there's good. Like, so it's almost always both. Yeah. You know?
I can relate. Well, hey, we are going over our hour and I know you have a 7-month-old that you have to get back to.
I do.
So I'm gonna wrap this up for you real quick.
Love it.
Okay. So I do want to ask, you can give me a quick answer. What are you looking forward to as you continue to age into your career?
Oh my gosh. That's such a good question. I'm looking forward to playing the Bonnie Bedelia, Blythe Danner, like naturalesque, little bit ever so slightly like wrinkles in the perfect place, like artist woman in the woods.
Yes,
And then I would say relationships, more and more relationships. And I think professional ownership, taking ownership of the people I meet and tending those relationships
Yes.
and allowing them to be meaningful and important and helpful in my career moving forward.
Awesome. Okay. I normally ask people what advice they have, but you've already given that. So
I gave so
you have so much beautiful
Damn.
advice. So then my final question is, what does making it mean to you now versus when you were younger? So what does success look like to you now?
Ooh, I could like cry with that question. Oh, I could cry with that question because I think what's so beautiful about it is we get to decide.
Yeah. And
You get
everybody
to
has a
decide.
different answer.
Yeah. When I was my first year, my mom was visiting when the Oscars were happening and a friend came over and they were talking and I was so pissed at them. I was like, shut up, I'm looking at the Oscars.
Oh my God.
I was as egotistical to say like, oh, I don't even want an Oscar. Like, but I wanted an Oscar so that I could not even want it. You know?
Yeah.
I think it meant being like really successful and working all the time and being famous. And I don't know. So I wanted my own sitcom. I thought that would happen in 5 years. That was my 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Own sitcom. Okay. Now what does making it mean to me? You know, it means defining the goals that I have for myself, committing to the journey to accomplish them, and enjoying the process.
Oh, wow. That is fantastic. That is.
And believing that it's coming,
Yeah.
and taking note of the little steps.
Hmm.
And even if that doesn't even, because right now, like, you know, my main goals aren't professional. Like my main goals are more about my life. Like I really want a house, and that's been a huge piece of my dream. And it felt so impossible for so many years. So I wasn't even believing it was possible. And now I'm just like, what if it could be possible? And you know, even this apartment search, this new, you know, there's a little house that we might get. I don't know if we'll get it or not, but like, maybe it's coming and maybe that's a piece of like, what if it was coming faster than you?
Yeah.
Thought.
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
So.
Yeah. I like to think that about a lot of things in my
I'm
life.
going to listen back to that because I like my answer and I have no idea what I just said.
Yep.
I'm gonna need to own that.
Yeah. Yes. You need to listen back to that. I'll clip it and I'll send it to you.
Okay, please. I'll just wake up to it. Just be my alarm clock. Yeah, that'd be great.
Lynn, thank you so much for giving me your time and your energy and your words.
Absolutely.
This has been
bless all the people who have listened.
Yes, this has been so magical. I really appreciate it. Where can people follow you if you want them to follow you? And
sure,
where can they check out your work or hire you as a coach?
Oh, please. Yeah. I can, and I talk to anyone. So you don't have to, like, we didn't end up working together long-term, Lisa. We did a couple conversations. And so, you know, if you've heard this conversation and you're like, I don't know, there's something there, just know that there's no strings and no like attachment, that we would work together long-term because I'm open to speaking and supporting anyone who's ready and willing. So Lynn Downey Braswell on Instagram, Lynn Downey on IMDb, YouTube, Downey543, and then work.of.art.coaching or workofartcoaching.com.
Got it. Okay. And I will link all this in the show notes as well.
I just said all the things.
I know.
Good luck. I'm around. I'm in Burbank right now. I don't know. Just be like, Lynn.
Where's that Lynn lady? All right.
I'm by the IKEA. Lynn's got to be somewhere around here.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Thank you again so much.
Blessings.
And we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
You got it.
Thank you all for listening to this week's episode. You can follow Lynn on Instagram at Lynn Downey Braswell and follow her coaching on Instagram at work.of.art.coaching. And of course, check out her coaching website, workofartcoaching.com. You can check her out on IMDb as well and see all her wonderful credits. If you are enjoying the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. And please share the show with your friends on social media. I don't know, maybe grab their phone, make them subscribe. It'll be a nice surprise for them. Word of mouth is the best marketing. So yeah. Please be sure to follow the show on Instagram at Making It After 40, the number 40. And to catch up on what I'm doing when I'm not podcasting, check out my Instagram at Lisa Rodriguez. Thank you all for listening and have an excellent week.